sent out to everyone who registered, but in the essence of time, let's just go ahead and get started. And I'll start by introducing myself. Hello, everyone. I am Tiffany Feingold. I am one of the co-founders of Guiding Bright Minds. Most of you probably know who we are, but I just want to share. So Guiding Bright Minds launched 4 years ago, which is crazy that it's been 4 years. But I'm a parent of a wonderful neurodivergent child, and it was through that experience, as well as my husband, who grew up with undiagnosed dyslexia and ADHD, and he struggled significantly in school, and unfortunately had that one teacher, tell him he was lazy and stupid, and that really shaped the trajectory of his journey. And so he launched a company called Results Learning about 19 years ago. And his focus was helping out of the box learners, as he likes to call himself. And then when we saw our son struggling and he was getting kicked out of daycare and swim lessons and half-day kindergarten in the principal's office, it was mind-boggling to me and overwhelming as a parent as to how is this happening to this wonderful little boy who was so excited to go to school and start learning. And I created, and looked at Guiding Bright Minds to say I didn't want parents to feel they were alone, because you do feel like you're drowning and you do feel like the world's against you. And so the first thing I did was create a network of providers, and amazing providers like Craig Nippenberg and his organization, which is the largest. And I'm going to go and talk a little bit more about him. Because I didn't know who to connect with. I didn't know who to go to. And so, with Guiding Bright Minds, make sure too that when you are out there thinking about who's the best team to support me and my family, is to look at the Guiding Bright Minds directory of providers. They are all, I meet with them personally, I talk to them, find out why they're doing what they're doing and how they're helping the community. And that's important to me as a parent. And it's important, that I recommend to parents too, is as you look at talking to the different providers, not everyone also going to be a great fit. So make sure to know what you're looking for. But we're so excited to have you here today. I also do want to share really quick. We blessed you, by the way, Craig. We have a neurodiversity resource fair that I'm hosting on June 22nd. I will post a link to it. Nippenberg, Patterson, Langley and Associates is a platinum supporter of that. So thank you to Craig, but just amazing opportunity to come out into the community to meet all these wonderful professionals and see what the best option is for you and your family. So having said that, let me introduce Craig Nippenberg. He's a therapist and founder of Colorado's largest private mental health practice, specializing in child and adolescent neurobehavioral disorders. He is also the author of 2 books now, Wired and Connected, which is a brain-based solutions to ensure your child's social and emotional success. And also just recently released and a bestseller is Shame-Free Parenting. During early months of COVID, he presented a phased approach to navigating COVID-19 for families through Facebook Live. He is currently the host of a podcast called Legit Parenting, Strategies for Actual, and then in quotes, Imperfect Parents for Building Resilient Children and Families. The podcast is available on Apple and Spotify. And as a parent of a neurodivergent child, I know how the journey can be hard. So one of the things that, Craig provides is the structure for allowing parenting without guilt and shame. So having said that, Craig, I am going to turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Tiffany, and thank you for the introduction. And to our audience, I'm so excited to be here. I think I was one of the first sponsors of Guiding Bright Minds 4 years ago. I can't believe it. And I remember talking to you and Kyle about your idea and the concept, and I'm like, go for it. And what's even more valuable, and Tiffany, I spoke at the ADD Adventure Conference. I keynoted at DU a couple of weeks ago. And I talked a little bit about the history of the support organizations for ADHD, which we had here in Colorado in 1980s and 90s, called ADDIGE, the Attention Deficit Disorder Advocacy Group. And it was a Cadillac model for the whole country. We had 20 support groups going for parents all around the state. We had conferences, speakers come in, referral list. It was just awesome. And it was started by several moms, one and then several others, very passionate mom, Pamela Murray, who had a son with ADHD, and she was a mom on a mission. Unfortunately, Adage closed down after she retired because it's impossible to hire someone to be a mom on a mission that's doing it for 90 hours a week. It didn't happen, so we folded in the chat organization. But Tiffany, I was thinking this morning, Guiding Bright Minds is picking up where Adage left off, and you're the mom with the mission.
I am.
And nothing's going to stop you. And I was like, wow. So we got it back again in Colorado. I'm on a mission and a place for parents to go to get support because you need it. It's exhausting. I myself, in addition to being a therapist for 40 years, working with every kind of kid you can imagine, specializing in ADHD, ASD, kids with learning issues. I'm dyslexic myself. Professionally running social skills groups, which can be lots of fun at times and pretty chaotic at other times, and trying to teach them social skills. Also, as a parent, my wife and I have 3 neurodivergent adults now. So we've been through lots of things, and Tiffany mentioned the exhaustion. And it's the exhaustion, the fatigue, the repetition of going over things, hoping they'll stick and they don't. Or when you take a couple steps forward and you're feeling hopeful, and then boom, you get knocked back to reality. Like, here we go again. So I'll share with you, and my daughter doesn't mind because she actually comes to my lectures and she loves me storytelling. But we adopted our daughter when she was 7. And we knew she had ADHD, bipolar, some attachment issues, some trauma experiences, and very challenging child. And she even told us on the first drive back, we were bringing them home, she's like, I'm a pretty tough kid. And she said, I'm really hard on the adults. I'm like, oh, we can handle you. Well, it's been a journey. And this past Sunday, she's 18 now. We're going to her rose ceremony for her associate's degree tonight. Graduation's on Friday. She'll be a cosmetologist. And then the next week is her high school rose ceremony and high school diploma. She did both at the same time. But on Sunday, we were at our church for a blessing of the seniors who were finishing high school. And it was really special. And then part of the project was parents requested adults in their child's realm, their sphere of influence, to write a letter to her. And so we gathered up about 8 letters for Lily from teachers, youth leaders, aunts and uncles, right? And us. We wrote a letter as well. So we had this lovely day, they had a luncheon for her and the families. And that night she came home. She'd come home, dropped off her stuff, and then went back out with her friends, and then came home in the evening about 8 o'clock, and she opened the letters and she asked if we'd read them to her. And I got to tell you, all 3 of us were just bawling, or absolutely bawling in tears. And that earlier in the day, my wife and I were both teared up, and we just talked about, man, all the stuff we went through and never thought we'd see it to the finish line. And here we are getting to the finish line, at least for the early years. We still got young adult and adulthood to go, but we're like, this is amazing. So we read these letters, and it's just the most perfect moment. Oh, she hugged us. We had a big family hug, and she was so appreciative. It was just blissful. So after age 7, 18, 11 years, there was this golden moment. Then she goes to her bedroom. We had put the dogs to bed in her room. They sleep in her room, and we'd put them to bed earlier, same time every night, 6 o'clock, put the dogs down to bed with her in her room. And she comes storming out after this golden moment going, the dogs ate all my candy from my friends. And we're like, what? And then, like, honey, did you put candy just drop it on the floor again? Well, I didn't have time to put it away. And it was the dog's fault. And you guys don't send the dogs in until later in the evening, until I'm home. So I have a chance to clean up. And we're like, oh my God, we've been over this thousands of times about putting things away and no food in the room. And the dogs don't eat M&Ms. It's not really healthy for them. But to hear her upset and then blaming sort of my wife and I for it, And we're like, no, you need a better organizational system than just dropping things wherever you are, because that's how she does it. Wherever she is, she just drops it. And so we quickly ended that conversation, and she went to her room, and my wife turned to me in bed and she said, I could have done without that part. And I'm like, yeah, me too. But that's the reality of it. There's these moments when you're just doing so well, you feel you're on target as a parent, or your child's doing better, you've got your fingers crossed this year, and then you get that first phone call from school, and things aren't going well again, right? Or a child comes home with some story similar to what happened last year. Somebody was teasing them or making fun of them, all sorts of things. And then your heart just sinks. Or you think you've got it, this stage of development dialed in. We finally know how to put our clothes away, or we know how to do these things. And all of a sudden, it all comes back again. And it's a constant adventure. Being an exceptional parent of a neurodivergent kid is a constant adventure. And it really is quite tiring. Now, if it's all right at this point, Tiffany, I want to switch to kind of 7 ways to let go of any of your parental guilt and anxiety. Would that work, Tiffany? Is that okay?
Sounds good.
Yeah. So I want to start with our audience out there. I just want you to take a couple seconds and think about a time that you feel some guilt or shame about your parenting, that you didn't feel you were a good enough parent. So I just want you to think of that. You don't have to share them. We're not going to share them. But I just want you to hold on to that. Okay. And then we're going to kind of look at why you don't have to feel that way. Well, first of all, there's not that much you do as a parent that's going to change your kid's future in any dramatic way beyond who they are genetically. And the rule is you just have to be this side of good enough. Perfect parenting doesn't exist. And there is no research that would say if you're a perfect parent, your kid will go to Stanford or Harvard or have a better life. It's not true at all. There's no research on that. Your kid is genetically wired to who they're going to be. If you have an adequate environment, there's not major traumas in the child's life. You feed them, you clothe them, you keep them alive, reasonable education. They're going to be who they're going to be. Russell Barkley, who's the leading ADHD expert in the world, likes to talk about as a parent of an exceptional child, you're more of or any parent, you're not an engineer. You can't engineer a child. You're just a shepherd. You shepherd them around to greener pastures. You protect them. You keep the wolves away as best you can. Keep them alive, and then see what grass they want to choose to eat. You can't make them eat or graze in different pastures. You're just offering them safety and opportunities. So it's not that you're building this child from scratch and you're an engineer. You're not at all. And so a foundational principle is when you're struggling with your own parenting and you're getting frustrated and it's coming out at home, is to realize it's going to be okay. Your kid's going to be who they are. There are some times when tragedies happen. I shared some at that conference a couple of weeks ago, some really funny stories about things I learned about the kids over the years of 40 years of work, and some very tragic ones about some kids who didn't make it, who died early because of their disability and the mistakes they made. Quite touching. But what I said at the end, I said, there's out of these 30 stories, there's one thing all these stories have in common. All these kids I knew had great parents. They were lovely parents. It wasn't the parents' fault. They had difficult kids. They cared about their kids. They loved about their kids. They got them the best school they could. They got them therapy, support, help. They do anything for their kids, and they did. And you got to remember, you're just trying to be good enough. Your kid's going to be who you're going to be, and take some pressure, who they're going to be, and take some pressure off yourself. So not having too much pressure on yourself is the main message. Now, some ways to do that, and we can get rid of that memory that you have. First, you do want to focus on consistency at home. Now, I'm not talking about perfect, but generally speaking, we have things that we do in our family. This is, our schedule in the morning, schedule in the evening. This is how we handle our personal items, like your shoes in the living room, or how you clean the bathroom, right? And when you establish those rules and routines, you kind of want to be consistent with applying them. Now, but pre-COVID, what I would say to the non-exceptional families in my podcast, pre-COVID, if you can be consistent 80% of the time, you're just fine. You're doing great. You only need a B minus, and you're just doing great as a parent. There is no A plus tiger mom out there that exists, and it's not possible. So we're just going for a B. And then I said, now, unless you have a preschooler, high schoolers, or exceptional kids, then you're probably going for 65% is good enough. Because there's sometimes when you, let's say you say to your 13-year-old kid who's now his shoes, the smelly tennis shoes are bigger than their father's shoes, and you say, hey, the rule is here at home, you put your shoes in your room, you don't leave them out in the living room. That's the family rule, right? Well, one night you come in, the shoes are out there. You know you're supposed to get the kid out of his room, get him off his gaming machine or whatever, and go pick up his shoes. And you should, 65% of the time. Because the other percentage of time, you're too tired, you're exhausted. You don't want to have another argument with your kid. You just had one at dinner. You just want to like go read a book in bed and hide away. So in those moments, you just pick those shoes up and throw them against their door and go on your way, and you'll be just fine. And your kid is going to be just fine too. Now, post-COVID, during COVID, the rules around family consistency were pretty much blown apart. And eventually I got to the point of saying, you know, if you're a neurotypical family, 65% of the time is good. If you're exceptional family or have preschoolers or high schoolers, 51% is good enough. That's all you need. So you just need to be your best parent 51% of the time. Now, this also applies, this is a sidetrack. There's a concept of mindful parenting. And Kristen Race, who's a friend of mine, was one of the first ones to develop it. She's up in Steamboat, just a wonderful advocate for mindful parenting. But she started it 20 years ago. And she would never tell any parent, you have to be mindful 100% of the time. That every time your kid does something, you have to pause and relax and really reflect upon how to say so as not to hurt the child's feelings or not to that they know you're upset with them. This is the gentle parenting that's very trendy on social media right now, which is there's no research on it whatsoever. But no parent can do that. I can't do it, even as a therapist. I have a better shot doing it in my office here as a therapist, being mindful and present and stopping before I react. But there were times with running groups and some kid gets mad and starts throwing a chair, or somebody goes, let's press the fire alarm. And I'm like, oh man, you got to act, right? Or somebody gets hit in the head with a dodgeball and they're laying there, you're thinking, oh, we need emergency. Let's get over here and see if the kid's fine. You can't possibly be mindful all the time. Now, as a dad, the possibility of being mindful at home at night of what after a day's work. And I find out I get, 8 calls and text messages from the school that my daughter missed a class. And she finally gets home from work at 9 o'clock. I'm not mindful. I'm just pretty beat and things come out. And it's okay. As I said in a lecture once, it's okay to lose your shit sometimes. It really is. Now, you don't want to lose it all the time. If you're losing it too much, you really should get some support for yourself. If you're you yourself, everybody has a temperament, which is their emotional default. And some people default to anxiety when they're stressed. Other people default to anger, right? And I like the Winnie the Pooh characters. So the character Rabbit, his default is anger. So let's say you got some rabbit in you, and you respond a little too quick, and that is a chronic problem at home. Then get some help for yourself, right? Go see somebody and work on it with your child too. I love, generally speaking, the temperaments. Well, you'll see in the children too. So if I'm seeing a kid who's got the kind of the rabbit temperament, very impulsive, angry, burst out. When I talk to the parents, one of them will usually say, oh yeah, they got that from me. I have that too. And then we'll do like a family warm fuzzy jar where the mom or the dad and the student, the child work on something together around controlling their emotions, about taking a deep breath, about thinking before they speak. And if they do that, then they earn warm fuzzies in the jar. And when the jar, both mom and dad, or husband and son, or whoever, when the jar is full up, you cash it in for a fun family activity. And go to go-karting or Elish's or something like that. But it's to work on it yourself. But you don't have to be mindful 100% of the times. If you're a parent that's neuroexceptional, if you have ADHD and you're always running late, getting late to pick your kid up, all that kind of stuff, look into some apps, get some treatment for your ADHD yourself, work on it with your kids, to try to, just kind of increase your consistency some. But again, it doesn't have to be perfect. And if you can work on it with your kids at the same time, that's even better. Third concept is, and this is with letting go of your guilt, you have to extend grace to your kids, one, to your partner if you have one, and to yourself. It is what they go through every day is very difficult. When on the research, the kids with ADHD get 10 times the negative messages at school a day from teachers every day. So for the neurotypical kid, they barely get reprimanded, and your kid gets reprimanded 10 times. Well, by the time they get home, they're beat up. We know for dyslexic students, they use twice the energy to read the same amount as non-dyslexic students. They're exhausted. They're just tired, and they just want to take a nap or play and don't want to have to get to homework right away. So it's give your kids some grace, because when they get home, they're pretty beat up and they've had a tough go. And then your spouse too. Sometimes you might have a family rule. You both agree, okay, here's what we're going to do. This is our value as a family. And then husband or wife or one of the partners doesn't follow through. And then you're like, well, I thought we agreed that this was supposed to happen, and you didn't follow through on your end. You got manipulated again, which for my daughter, I was always the target of the manipulation. When she was in third grade, I got suckered into buying her this giant makeup box, like it folded like a suitcase, but with 3 tiers of makeup in it. It cost me like $50 at Michael's. I was so excited because she had told me about, oh, that would be really great to get from Santa, right? So I got it and I come home with it. My wife's like, what is that? Oh, I got this for Lily. She take it back. You're taking it back. I'm like, what? She's like, she knows there's no makeup till 6th grade. She knows that. She just manipulated you again. And I'm like, oh, but I want to give it to her. But I was a good spouse and I took it back. So I was often the target, and I knew that. And so I was able to extend some grace to myself and my wife that, yeah, instead of arguing back, that, yeah, I do kind of get manipulated. She's got me wrapped around a little finger. I've gotten better at it. And then I kind of switched tactics somewhere in about 4th or 5th grade. I just decided to say to my daughter, because she'd always ask me for something. If she knew mom was going to say no, she'd hit me up. Could be for a soda pop, anything. And I just started saying, honey, that's above my pay grade. I can't answer that question. Maybe you should talk to your mom about it. And that was a perfect default. My wife didn't mind because then I wasn't messing up. And my daughter knew that she had to check with mom. And then in high school, when she got her smartphone, instead of her texting me or her mother separately, we formed the council, which any text from our daughter went to both my wife and I. And our responses went back to her and the other partner, so that we were all on the same page. So one thing you do have to work on is that consistency again, everybody being on the same page so that you don't get manipulated. So that helps. But extend grace. And to your teachers too. I mean, teachers, I work with teachers, and I know some incredible teachers, and they work with your kids, and they're exhausted too. And sometimes when the teacher calls with, oh, here's what happened today, you might get kind of revved up and want to respond, or you feel like, oh, we're getting attacked by the teacher again. And I got to tell you, a lot of the teachers don't enjoy making those calls. They sweat them out. And you want to make sure, just say, thank you for letting me know. I know it's hard to inform parents of these things. especially the younger teachers that don't have kids yet. They feel very sheepish about it, but you just want to thank them and appreciate that what they're sharing with you. And then you can mull it over and figure out which way to go. But extend grace to the teachers as well. Then on those times, this is point number 4, if you blow it and you lose your shit, you get all upset, either with your kid or your spouse, just apologize and work on doing better next time. It's just all about an apology. And when you apologize, that's role modeling for your kids. So if you as the parent can say, hey, honey, I'm sorry I lost control. I got a little too upset about that. You're role modeling for them how to do that. And perfect parenting, building resiliency in kids. This gentle parenting thing, and the idea is, well, if you never have disharmony and you and your child are just like this all the time, they'll be resilient. Well, that's the opposite of what's true. Strong resiliency is built on difficulties, hardships, where you separate some with some hard feelings between each of you, and then you repair it and you come back together and bring each other together and you love and forgive each other. And now that relationship's stronger than ever. So resilient relationships are built on disharmony and discord and being able to work through it and make yourselves feel even closer to each other. Not by you always being happy with your child and never scolding them. That's not going to help them one bit. And when they get to a teacher or a friend or a romantic partner who doesn't react the same way, they're going to have a hard time dealing with that because they've never had to deal with it. So you just want to apologize, work on doing better the next time. The one guilt one that when I did that exercise with you, I'll share you mine right now, was during COVID when Lily was an 8th grader at our little Catholic school close to our house. And they tried to do the online thing that was that spring of 21. Was it 21 or 20? I can't even 20. Yeah, it was 20. Like, it was April, May of 20. And, they didn't have the resources to really do a thorough job. And our daughter was ensuring us that she had all her assignments done. She was up to snuff and everything, right? Even though she was spending quite a bit of the room with the phone in her room. What we thought was doing homework turned out it was more like TikTok. But about 2 weeks before graduation, her social studies teacher sent us an email as parents saying she's behind 40 assignments, has been ghosting him the whole time, and she's not going to graduate unless they're done. Well, I did not handle that one well. And it was about 7:30 in the evening, and I was pretty lit. And I just blew up, yelling like, how irresponsible can you be? I'm taking that phone, it's gone. And it was not a happy moment for us. So that night I went to bed and I thought, I should apologize for not because I was upset, but the intensity. So I'm not saying that her behavior was okay. It's not. It wasn't. But I got a little too intense. So the next morning I went in and I sat on the side of her bed and said, hey, baby, I want to apologize for getting a little too upset last night. I reacted too hard about that. And the sweetest could be, she said, that's okay, Daddy. It's all because of COVID. We're all stressed. Now, part of me right then wanted to say, no, it's not that COVID, it's that you didn't do your 40 assignments. But I didn't get worked up again. I stayed calm and I said, well, honey, we are going to get those done this week. And you'll be sitting at the kitchen table every day until they're finished. And lo and behold, she got them done. And that very teacher brought over her little graduation banner thing you stick in the front yard. He was the one to bring it to her and she graduated. Now she's finishing high school, thank goodness. So if you get upset, apologize. Tip 5, here's the most important thing you can give to your kid that will last the rest of their lives. It's the only thing they've ever found in the research. Like, what could parents do that would pass on to their children that will last the rest of their lives and guarantee them a better mental health, maybe a greater satisfaction in their life, their adult life, some happiness, whatever. And it was parental kindness. That if you're a parent and you're kind to other people, the postal worker, the grocery workers, the school teachers, right, the neighbors, if you're a kind, caring parent, your kids will inherit that and they will become kind, caring adults and will last them the rest of their lives. Now, usually people think about money. Well, if you give them generational wealth, they're going to be set. And actually, in the research on that, that burns out around age 30. Get you an early job, get you an early house, but there's no guaranteed money is going to make you a happy family or a happy couple. No research on that. But if you're a kind parent, your kids will be kind as well. So that's the thing you want to focus on as a parent more than anything, I think. Number 6, the Gottman principle. So now if we were all together, and if you want to, you could type them into Tiffany, or you might get overwhelmed with it all. I want you to think about some positive things you've done for your kids this week. Like, what have you done as a parent that were positive things for your kids? And just you could type them in, just think of them out loud, right? I tell you, I told my daughter this morning when she got up, I loved her and how lovely she looked. And we talked about a rose ceremony tonight and how I'm so excited because she's going to wear a dress. She usually likes to do the what I call the misenfranchised youth look, which is the holey jeans and the baggy sweatshirt, looking like, we don't fit in. She's a lovely child, but I think she's going to wear a dress, and I'm so excited for her. And we'll be going to the rose ceremony. Both my wife and I canceled work to go to the ceremony for her, right? You took your kids to school. You made them lunch. You made a breakfast. You woke them up. You said, I love you. You helped them with their homework last night. You played a family game. You brushed their hair for them. You helped them with their shower, or reminded them to brush their teeth, which is a good thing. They need to do that. You could go on and on. And so you have to think of your child's life and their development is like a giant stained glass window. And every day they're adding new pieces of glass into the picture of who they are and who they will become. Now, some of those things are going to be negative. And we know for exceptional kids, they're getting more negative messages because they're struggling. They're not organized, they're not paying attention, they're impulsive. So then their glass window is going to have some pieces they don't like as much. My job as a therapist, the way I describe it to my graduate students and to my clients, my job is to kind of help you reformulate your stained glass window. And we'll figure out which of these pieces we want to kind of get rid of and we don't need them anymore, and then how to put these together so that you can be who you can be. My favorite quote is Friedrich Nietzsche, out of chaos comes a shooting star. And that's what I help kids do, is figure out who they are, who they're going to be, what their potential is, and we're going to rearrange it. But if you think about that stained glass window and you think about, okay, here's that time I yelled at my kid, or here's that time that Greg yelled at his daughter. He should be shamed. He's a therapist and he yelled horribly at his daughter. That's terrible. There's that piece of glass in my parenting picture and in my daughter's picture. But it's one small piece compared to thousands and thousands and thousands of positive things you've done. When I shared that story about my daughter missing assignment, she was at the talk at the book table. She sells books for me. And she yelled out, I don't even remember that. And I'm like, see, there you go. Here's this one. I'm holding on to all this guilt. She didn't even remember it. And chances are your kid isn't going to remember that thing either. And so you got to kind of let it go. But then if you apply the Gottman principle, who is a therapist and a relationship therapist, and his philosophy or his research showed for every negative interaction you have with someone else, could be your partner, your kids, you only need 5 positives to cover that up and to make it okay. So if you have 5 positive interactions and only 1 negative, you've got a normal relation. That's normal. Now, if you got 5 negative, 1 and 1 positive, that's not good. But when you think about all the positive things you do for your kids all the time, I mean, there's thousands, and the ratio is way skewed more towards the positive. And yes, sometimes it could get really difficult and it's extremely frustrating. And I wish I could say to you that when your kids are older, all these feelings will go away and your stress will be gone as a parent. It doesn't. Our kids are 18 to 47 and 2 grandkids, and we worry about the grandkids too, right? One of whom might be getting some testing soon. because we're a little concerned about impulsivity. But things go on into adulthood. And just like with our daughter the other night, when we have this joyous moment, and now we're in trouble because the dogs ate her candy. There's always going to be more. I wish it wasn't the case, but it just gets a little bit more expensive, to be honest. But you keep going on, and you keep adding positives to their stimulus, but positives to your own window. And that's why I think my wife on Sunday, when we both were just reflecting on, we did a pretty good job by her, for adopting this little girl and bringing her to our family. I really can tell you, I feel we did right by her. It's like an old Southern statement. We did right by that child. And that means more than just about anything to me, that we did that for her. And she knows it and appreciates it and is very expressive of it. And, 14 years ago, my wife and I were trying to decide, should we retire early and just travel and play golf a lot, or should we adopt another child? And we decided on that one. And that also meant working and not retiring for quite some time, because we've got to pay for that next phase. So remember the Gottman principle. Finally, I want you to focus on the Hebrew word. I can't say it right. Maybe Tiffany can. Nakas. Was I close, Tiffany?
That was good.
That was good. I don't have that tongue roll thing.
Right.
So it's a Hebrew term for when you feel pride and joy in your offspring. And we don't have it in English, but I'd tell you, when you have those moments and you see these moments of clarity with your child that you have, and you're so proud of them, or they accomplished something they weren't able to do for, they reached a new developmental milestone, and they came home and said, I realized that I can control my feelings better. And you're like, way to go. Yes, that's so good. Just write it down. Save it, write it down. I have a whole drawer full of things for my kids, that special moments, memories, things that truly make me cry. And when I think about them, and they warm my heart, because there are other times when it's extremely difficult. And explain those difficult times to your kids, and explain it to them. I was on this wonderful, lovely podcast by a former Green Beret, and two of his buddies, and they invited me on, and it's primarily targeted towards veterans and who are now home, or parents themselves, and have trauma. And they asked me to talk about helping kids with anxiety, but also for the vets, when they're getting triggered and they're anxious, and they respond and have a flashback or get angry and uptight. And what impact does that have on kids? Well, obviously that is going to be a struggle for children, but all you have to do is explain it to them and say, hey, I'm sorry that happened. I got triggered. This is what that means. That was frightening for me, or that was upsetting for me based on what happened when I was overseas. And I don't want to take it on you, but I just wanted to explain it to you so you understand, and you don't feel like it's your fault, because it's not your fault. And you do have to remember, the kids often will personalize stuff. They think mom and dad are arguing because it's their fault, or they caused these bad things to happen. And so that's what we're talking about. When you have hardship, talk about it and do that together. So write those things down. My one that I'm going to have the guest on our show on my podcast coming up. I took my daughter prom shopping a couple of months ago, and it was just amazing, picking out these dresses. I'm carrying them all around the store. They weighed a ton. And then she would try them on. And I just was in tears several times, looking at how much she's matured in these beautiful outfits, a beautiful woman, and how time had flown. And we just had so much fun joking with each other, having the greatest time. And the founder of the shop it's called Riley's Ark. It's a tragic story of a couple, where the mom was taking their teen daughter prom dress shopping in, I believe it was Cherry Creek here in Denver, and a car got out of control, went through the store window and ran over their daughter. She died when she was 17. Back in about 2014 it happened. And he and his wife were just devastated. And then they really wanted to honor her and all the acts of kindness she was known for. And they started this shop, and it's a nonprofit. other girls around the city donate their prom dresses after prom. So all the dresses are donated. Then they feature them at several different malls. They run out of space, hang up all the dresses, dressing rooms, etc., and bring in girls from all over the place, inner city kids, anybody can come, and you can pay whatever you can afford. There's no price tags. It's all just volunteer donations. And we went there, and my daughter, I didn't know it was the man was the father who founded the place was behind the desk, and we're paying. And he looked at me, he said, I'm going to really miss you and your daughter bantering with each other, because we were doing a lot of bantering. I was like, hey, honey, what do you think of this dress? Knowing that she would hate it, right? Um, just back and forth. And I said, oh, thank you much. We had a lot of fun with that. And we're on the way home, and I'm like, oh my God, that's the father. And it dawned on both of us that he doesn't get to banter with his daughter ever again. And you're like, holy spit. Very moving. And that's one of those memories that I've talked about, and I wrote it down. It's in my journal, and it'll be there forever. So treasure those moments, because you're going to need them in the hard ones. Finally, I would tell you, accept hardship, but embrace every moment, because it really goes fast. Before you know it, you're standing on the other side, and you're like, wow, can't believe it. It's already over. And find support with other parents. And that's where Guiding Bright Minds is so key. And Tiffany and Kyle's work is no other parent's going to fully understand what your life is like. Even if your therapist, if they don't have an exceptional kid, they're not going to be able to fully grasp it. It wasn't until we brought Lily in our house that I really kind of like, whoa, this is a lot different than I thought. And I'm a lot more tired, and I'm older, and this is brain damaging. My hair got a lot grayer. But then I got it. And so you need to be with other parents that can reflect and help you, just kind of uncover some of your own traumatic experiences with parenting and the hardships, and get support, someone to vent with, other parents that will understand it, because no one else really will. So that's essential. And I really appreciate Tiffany for all that she's done, and Kyle, and making that happen. So I could talk for hours, but I wonder, Tiffany, if we should maybe look if there's some questions people are sending in, or.
Yeah. So let's definitely, I mean, I know all of us have so much uniqueness in our journeys, similarities also in our journeys, but to open it up for any comments or questions. Somebody did, in recognizing, the positive aspects of what you did mention, Jen had mentioned she attends every sporting event. And what's funny when you ask those questions, because sometimes I'm on autopilot. Like I make my son breakfast every day, driving him to school, reminding him to brush his teeth, to do all those things. And, it's just for me, like that autopilot, that's what being a parent's about. And not thinking about all of the amazing things that it's doing to help and support him. And it's funny that I've never like paused. And that's where I think in life in general, that all of us need to do is just pause long enough to say, oh my gosh, these are all those wonderful things.
Yeah.
Like when we held them, when they cried, when we did that, and being able to embrace that. So I love that conversation. So any of you have questions, and I saw something else come in, but please, this is an opportunity to chat with Craig, find out.
And if I could add, do you mind if I just, what you just said was about, so often we spend time focused on the negatives, or where we made a mistake, and we're thinking that's going through our brain. We're trying to fall asleep at night. Oh my gosh, I shouldn't have said that. Do the same thing with positives. Take a pause, right? And we all get into those routines. There's actually research that when you have routines, it saves brain space, because you don't have to think about everything you're doing. Your brain just kind of does it for you. You don't have to figure out every step of everything you're doing. So it's an energy saver for our brains. But then you can kind of get in that zone where you're just trying to get out the door, get into school, and then you're back at it at 4 o'clock. And if you can throw a pause in there sometimes and just go, I'm so proud of you today, and for the school year you've had, or, the Avalanche came back last night. Can you believe it? They won in overtime. it was so cool. Your favorite player scored. So make sure to throw that stuff in. And another thing is when your kid comes home or if you pick them up, the first thing out of your mouth should never be, how much homework do you have? Where's your homework? Don't do that. And I know you have to ask because if your kid has special needs, if you don't ask, it's not going to get done. So you do need to check and have systems for homework, but don't ask that first. Focus on them as a person first, as a kid, and your relationship. So you can always bring up whatever their favorite thing is. Did you hear Taylor Swift has a new album on? All the little girls right now, Taylor Swift, that's a winner if you bring that up. But get into their lives when they come home.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is a question. No, I love that too. How do you counsel couples where one parent is more bought in than the other? I feel it causes another level of frustration around the usual events that are already happening.
Yeah, no, it does when you're on different pages. Now, no couple has to be perfectly consistent either, just like you as an individual parent. And kids can get used to different parenting styles, just like they get used to different teachers. You could ask your child today, ask them, well, which teachers are more strict? They know, they'll tell you right off the bat, oh, it's that Mr. Johnson, or, oh my gosh, Mr. Green, he's like horrible, he's so strict. And then you ask them, well, who's more fun, right? And they'll tell you who the fun ones are and how you can get away with a little bit more and you can be silly and talk to your friends. They know that and they adjust. And they're expected to adjust their behavior towards the coach they're with or the teacher they're with, right? So you can have some difference in that regard. If you can talk about it, like, okay, this is how I see it, this is how you see it. And my wife and I have been down this road. That is not a one and done discussion. We're still kind of getting to it. And we had a little rue a couple of weeks ago around this. But she's often, I feel, honey, why do you focus on the negative so much? Let's try to look at I'm a little more Winnie the Pooh about it, right? And then she's like, oh, you're living with your heads in the clouds and you're just getting manipulated and you don't realize it. And I'm like, and then after enough times, I realized, yeah, I just got sold a bill of goods again. And here I was feeling so good about our insightful daughter who really was just trying to get something out of me. And so I was proven wrong many a time. But you do want it to have, like, to talk about how we do have different approaches. The big one is, well, is this the exceptionality, like an ADHD based behavior or a function of dyslexia or a function of autism? Is that's what's causing it? Or is this willful behavior, right? That they're willfully doing this, they're challenging your authority, they're not respecting us as parents. And that's that dynamic that you can, now, if I could invent a tool that would tell you, oh yeah, that's an ADD symptom and they need their meds, or no, that's willful and that kid needs discipline, I'd make a fortune. But sometimes that's kind of guesswork. But if you can talk about it as a couple and not get all upset about it, but just, hey, let's kind of revisit this, or maybe there's some situations that one of you take over the parenting of, other situations where the other person handles the parenting. And then when you do find your partner doing the opposite or whatever, you do want to give a pause and a little grace. And I should have done that the other day when it was about 3 weeks ago. My daughter was for cosmetology. They were studying all day to prepare for their licensing test, right? Like, this is pretty big. And 2 days in a row, we get 4 texts, 4 voicemails from the teacher that our daughter fell asleep in class, or our daughter was caught a second time with earbuds in listening to music from her phone. And my wife's like, well, and here we did. You got her that new phone back at Christmas. Well, I instantly thought my wife was saying, well, this is your fault for getting her that new phone. And what, am I being canceled now because I got her the phone? I actually said that. I'm like, you canceling me? She's like, no. And I was like, I was pissed. She was upset. Later on, we calmed down. We talked about it. She said, I just meant you do this stuff, or we all do this stuff for her to be nice to her and gracious to her. And this is how she pays us back. So it wasn't about that I got her the phone and she didn't get a new one, or I don't have a new one. it was more that we do these things for her and we try to help her, and then we don't get much in return. It's not it's that investment on return. The Freakonomics people looked at parenting from an investment strategy, and their basic advice to parents was, if you're not going to get something out of it, don't do it. So if you have to take your kid to soccer practice 5 days a week and there's nothing in your investment that's going to make you feel richer somehow, don't get involved. That's a good rule. Okay, don't do it unless you get something out of it too. But you can do couples counseling. I work with quite a few exceptional parents and families and couples. I do everything from a brain-based perspective, and I find it's helpful for parents and particularly for kids. I was just explaining frontal lobe functioning and controlling one's thoughts and emotions to a little first grader who has lots of thoughts and lots of emotion. And he looked at me and said, I think my brain is sick because I can't control them all. I said, no, your brain's not sick, but here's what's going on in your brain. I drew him a picture of how it works. I said, you just need to work on using your president a little more, your prefrontal cortex. It was so sweet. But I find if I do that brain-based perspective with the parents, especially the one who's more think it's willful, and then I get a little further and they can have more insight about, oh yeah, okay, so that's what's going on, or this is what we could do, or maybe we could try the medications. Let's just see. And for a lot of our kids, the medication can make a world of difference, whether it's ADHD, autism spectrum, you got a kid with bipolar, can make a huge difference. And we've had a wonderful psychiatrist here for our daughter. And I just wrote her a letter thanking her for all that she did to help our daughter get to where she is now.
And one thing I want to add to that too, Craig, because, I think so much, which is great, is to support our children. Because, there are tools and resources and we want them to be the best version of themselves and successful. But also what I've learned through this journey as well is just, parent coaching, not parent therapy, but also parent coaching for me.
Yeah.
And Kyle and I are both going through this just because parenting is hard. And then we have, how we were raised and society's views of how we should parent, expectations that, come to your example about like the shoes too, or not dropping things on the floor, that this continuation and of doing that, but how to really manage us through some of those
Yeah.
those steps that we need. And it's been transformational also for me, and
Yeah.
releasing the chaos of the world around, just say, I'm putting blinders on of people looking at me and judging me or expecting me to do this, or my son should sit at the table and be quiet during dinner time. I'm like, no, my son can get up and run around because he's had to hold it all together all day
Yeah.
long. This is his safe space. And he's gonna eat when he's hungry, and I wanna make sure he's getting his nutrition, but it was liberating for me to say, you know what, for Thanksgiving, for Christmas, for Hanukkah, for all those events, if he doesn't wanna sit in this chaotic table with all these people and the chattering, the clamoring, you know what, then he doesn't have to. And it was so good. I felt so good. And if people
Yeah.
don't like it, they don't have to come sit at my table.
Right. Yeah, of course. So part of that's you're finding your own journey as a parent, and but you need that support, the validation, understanding, and finding the people that can give that to you and enrich you. And sometimes you just say, after, excuse my French, but I don't give an F what those parents think about my parenting, right?
Yeah.
Because they don't know what it's like. They don't understand it. And so, yeah, they're probably judgmental, and some people are pricks. Just,
And we gotta
does that make
stop
sense?
that, right?
So you have to come to that point, but also accept that you get more negative messages. There's on like social activities, going to church, synagogue, picnics, school picnics, that special needs families often attend less and less because they usually get negative feedback. Their kid was causing a problem and something happened, and so you start to avoid and you withdraw. And withdrawing is the worst thing you do as a parent and a family in that situation. You need more support, not less. And then finding the people that will support you. I avoid social media unless you're looking at my posts, because mine's about real parenting, legit parenting, not all that stuff from the dialed up moms who are telling you have to never yell and all this stuff. That stuff will drive you nuts. It'll make you feel terrible as a parent, and it's not research based. So turn that stuff off. But then if you can find a couple tips from another parent, and I heard one yesterday when I was getting my hairstyle from my stylist, Amanda, who's a young mom of two very spirited young boys, like first grade and fifth grade. And she's my pipeline into the young moms because she knows everything that's going on with the moms and the kids. And yesterday she was telling me this story that she got so fed up with their boys. She said, they're always in a hurry, and then when they pee, they just take their penis on and just spit it all over the place, and it's all everywhere. It's on the toilet, the basin, the floor, the walls. Like they're just so unmindful, and I get so tired of scrubbing it. So the other day I went up to the store and I got a black light flashlight, and I took him into the bathroom. I said, "Okay, boys, we're turning off the light." She turned off the light, turned that thing on. She said, "Now you see all those spots along the wall there? That's pee. That's your pee. And next time, if I see it, you're going to be scrubbing it off because I'm tired of scrubbing your pee." And I'm like, "Oh my God, don't mess with Amanda. She's awesome." And I mean, what a great technique, right? I'd never heard that in 40 years of
That's
working with parents. I'd never heard of the black light trick to show them how their pee's going everywhere. And that they're going to be scrubbing it themselves next time
yeah,
instead of her. Um, so it's those little things when you're connected with other parents, you hear about a parent did this or had that idea, and you're like, "Oh, that's a pretty good idea. I think that might work with my kid." And
yeah,
you give it a try. And some won't. Some will be like, "Nah." And the other thing is that uh, all kids are different. Every kid's different.
right,
And there's 50 to 100 ways to handle them,
yeah,
depending on their brain formulation.
yes. Well, we're getting at 1:12. I don't see any other questions. I put my email in there. So any of you that are parents and, just struggling on your journey, one of the things, and I'm not a consultant, but I do help, link parents and find out where they are and connect them with the right professionals to work with. So if any of you want to email me, please do share with me, where you are in your journey, your story. I'm also working on continuing on with these free parent webinars. I used to do 2 a month and then I stopped for a period of time because of my resource fair, but I just really missed this opportunity to provide options for you to learn and to grow and to support and however you want. So if you have ideas on topics you'd like to hear, definitely let me know. But just building this community where I just want you to know you're not alone and just support. So thank you all so much for joining today. Craig, thank you so much for all you
Thank you
do
so much,
and the
Tiffany.
impact you've
Well,
had.
it was lovely being on, and I invite any parents to check out my podcast, Legit Parenting, on Spotify, LEGIT Parenting. Um, then why Legit Parenting is also legitparenting.com is where both my books are, speaking engagements, stuff like that. And you can also go to welistentokids.com, and that takes you to my private practice and all the services we offer at Nippenberg and Associates, including testing, group therapy is our specialty, pre-K through young adults, family therapy, you name it. We've got a lot of stuff.
A lot of stuff, a lot of good stuff. Oh, and I forgot, I also am gonna email out this document to
Yes.
everyone. We didn't show the document, but I have a bunch of
The
outlines,
outline.
yeah, that Craig provided on this topic to take a look at, some more to come. So thank you all again so much. All right, bye everyone. Thanks, Craig.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Bye.